So this is a really interesting piece of kit. This is the Newer Technology PowerPump accelerator. And yes, it sounds a bit dodgy, but it's not what you think. What it's actually for is speeding up Macintosh Quadra 700, 900, or 950, early 040 Macs. As you can see on the side here, it specifies what specific Macs this is for. What is really unique or interesting about this card is that it is intended to speed up not only the internal 040 CPU, but can also speed up an expansion card that provided a 601 PowerPC chip. So it's kind of an adapter for an adapter in that regard. I have my suspicions that this will be a little bit of work, but we'll find out. As you can see, it's still in its original plastic wrap. So before I do anything, I'm going to have to take this plastic wrap off. So bear with me while I do that. Feels a bit sacrilege taking apart a piece of new old tech, but hey, I want to see if this works still. Now, these cards didn't retail for as much as you might think. They cost about $250 US. However, if you already had a PowerPC upgrade card, you had to think about how much more that was going to cost you, right? So here we've got a little list from Macworld magazine in February of 1995. It would cost you around $700 if you were to make this upgrade with Apple for a Quadra 700, and $600 if you went with Daystar Digital. So to upgrade your upgrade, it was going to cost you around $850 in total. So we've got all the plastic wrap off, and I'm just extracting all of the little bits and pieces. There we go. Now we have an empty box. That's fantastic. And let's start with, I guess this is the manual. Yep, that's the one. Newer Technology PowerPump. Looks very 90s, doesn't it? And we've got our floppy disk. And it's nice that they offer some of these utilities like clockometer and speedometer in addition to the PowerPump control panel. Here I am trying to take the floppy disk off, but the label is stuck to this other piece of, what is this? All right, yeah, it's the grounding cable. Yeah, I won't be using that, so let's try to get this off. So frustrating. You wonder how this happened in packaging back in the day or what? And I've managed to ruin the label. I'll sort that out later. Oh, I can send in my registration details to sales@newertech.com. I wonder if they'll accept this if I send it off to them. We'll see. Right, I just want to have a flick through the manual briefly just to show you. So it says March 1995 is the date at which it was manufactured. And here we've got a brief overview of the installation, right? So you actually get a ROM sim included with this upgrade. The new bus card that is added features a panic button on the back of the card. So I guess if you're having a massive issue with this, you can push that button and it goes back to the original stock CPU speed. Helpful to know. We've got the control panel, and it independently sets the speeds of the 040 and 601 chip. So what I'm going to be trying to do is just apply this to the 040 chip. I don't have an accelerator in my Quadra 700. Here is the replacement fan for the CPU, so it's not just a heatsink, but a fan as well. And this is the fan for the 601 processor if I had the upgrade card, which I do not. So I'll leave that off to the side. Interesting, though. And now we turn to the actual new bus card. So this is installed in one of the two new bus ports in my Quadra 700 that's not being used. Yeah, okay, I'm breaking a seal that is, 20 years old, but never mind. So this card is in pretty good shape, although you can see that the original packaging caused the connector here to bend, but I'll just bend that back before I stick it into the computer. Here's your ROM sim card. So I'll need to be putting that in. We've got a few connectors on there that change the clock speed. So we'll set that off to the side for now, and then we'll have a little peek at the new bus card. So you can see it's kind of an interesting little angled card here. And the reason for that weird cutout is to accommodate the processor upgrade card that would be in the computer to begin with. So that's why it's this strange little way. And then here's, of course, our little reset button, or sorry, the panic button. All right. So it looks like the developer of this actual card is Spectrum Electronics, and here are the various little chips that are going to be doing the work of changing the clock oscillator speed. Okay, so we'll set that down. What do we have here? Oh, these are the little clips that will attach to the oscillator as well as another chip on the board. Okay, so let's begin. We'll be using my Macintosh Quadra 700 for this. I've put it down on its side and changed the angle of the video just to help with kind of view angles and all the rest of it. We want to be able to see what's going on. First, what I'm going to do is take out the current NuBus card that's in there. This is an Asante Ethernet adapter. I realize that the Quadra 700 has Ethernet built in, but it doesn't have an RJ45 port, and I can't be bothered to, I don't have enough actually, adapters to convert the Apple AAUI into the RJ45, so I just stick a NuBus card in there. I've got one spare after all. I'm going to take out the power supply and also the hard drive and floppy drive. Not because the instructions suggest it, but I like to have as much room as possible when I'm trying to do this stuff, and it's dead easy to get this stuff out of the Quadra. Yeah, you'll notice that that is not the original hard drive. I'm using an adapter there, so that's a newer SCSI drive with an older connection. This adapter was actually made by another Mac enthusiast. I'm just going to return to the manual briefly just to remind myself of the order of things. It looks like the ROM sim needs to go in first, so I'm going to go ahead and start that process. Pretty straightforward as you might expect, just like installing RAM. The ROM sim goes in initially at an angle, and then you tilt it forward. And once that's seated, that's about it. That's the last I have to think about it. This adapter doesn't replace the CPU, quite clearly. What it does is it changes the speed, basically, of the clock oscillator by bypassing or disabling the original oscillator on the logic board. I'll get into more detail in a moment. What I'm going to do now is remove the original heatsink from the CPU. We could just have a quick little look at that before I replace it. And the replacement is a heatsink with fan that we got with the PowerPump. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on there. And the power for this fan actually is provided through the hard drive power port on the logic board. And the hard drive then plugs into the adapter that's offered in the cabling. This adaptation was kind of an annoying one because hooking that little cable around the oscillator's leg took a lot of time. I did it about, 5 or 6 times. It took me about 10 minutes. Managed to finally do it, as you can see. So we've got one cable attached. Now I need to be able to clip on the second cable to the chip that sits nearby the oscillator. Now, this doesn't take nearly as much effort, but I did want to make sure that the clip was actually touching the metal of the chip's leg without then shorting out the connection between the two legs as it was such a tight fit. There's a side of me that just thinks that I might as well just soldered this on, but never mind. We're going to go ahead and get the logic board reinstalled. I took it out simply so I could have some more room to work on this thing. So now that the logic board is back in, what I'm going to do is go ahead and put in the other components, like the reset switches and also the speaker. So I've gone ahead and sped up the video here. Now that I'm just checking my cables, I accidentally bumped them. Now that I've got that done, I can plug the speaker in, and now we'll turn to the NuBus cards. So I'm going to go ahead and put the NuBus cards in. As you can see, I stuck the Asante Ethernet adapter back into the first port rather than the second one. And now I'm putting the PowerPump into the second port. This is, of course, a mistake, and I had to change this out after I got it all installed because the PowerPump needs to be adjacent to where the PowerPC accelerator card would have been. Now that all that is done, we'll go ahead and put the top of the case back on, get this thing set up and ready to go. So let's open up Clockometer to begin with, just to see what the computer is running at natively. And we get a message that it's running at 25 megahertz. That was what you would expect out of a stock 040 and a Quadra 700. We'll go ahead and quit that and then move on into the PowerPump software, which is found in the control panels. So what we're going to do is open up PowerPump and see where we can increase things to. I'm going to click on the 040 and increase this up to 30. This is the lower end of the recommended speed boost that the manual suggests. I think 33 is the upper end. Obviously, I'm not going to change the 601 mode because I don't have a 601 processor. So now I've shut down the computer, or I'm attempting to, as is required, and restart it. Now we need to see if this thing actually works. Let's open up Clockometer and check the speed. So do we have 30 megahertz operating? Yes, we do. 29.98 megahertz. That's pretty close to 30. I'm happy with that. Now the one result of this is that the computer is now about as loud as a jet engine, although probably not as loud as the mere drive doors. Have a listen. So why would somebody do this? Why would you upgrade a computer like this? Well, because you can. I mean, I've got plenty of old Macs that are, faster than this, and I don't really see a point in keeping this inside the computer. I'll probably take this adapter out and just stick it off to the side. But I'm really happy to see that A, it still works, and B, that I was able to do it. And that's enough. Take care, everybody.